It's the flight to quality, flight to Class A. There is a new Class A that came about in this economic e-commerce boom. Class A of 2015 is different than Class A in 2025. So that flight to quality is definitely there. I call it Class A first gen versus Class A second and third gen. Still Class A, beautiful project. Maybe it's 5 years old, maybe it's 10 years old, but it's actually seeing a decline in rental rate, which is worrisome. If you're out there buying buildings, please don't run your Argus model on declining rents. But I think
nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Yeah. But we are seeing that the rents aren't being pushed in those projects; they're being pushed in the brand new Class A stuff.
Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast. You have Bill Condon and Matt McGregor. We have an awesome guest today, Travis Hale, partner at Panattoni Development, who's been certainly more active than anybody on the development side in our careers and of late as well. And so Travis is going to talk to us today about what's going on in the development world. And it's great to have you with us today, Travis. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure. Appreciate you inviting me here.
Yeah, well, always good to have you on. It's not Travis's first time, but tell us maybe as a starting point some of the projects you're working on right now.
Yeah, we've got a lot of projects up and down Washington and Oregon, up and down I-5. We cover Washington, Oregon, and Idaho out of our office in Seattle, and we're busy. We're definitely busy. We kind of went deep a couple years ago when everyone else kind of pulled out of the market. Us and one of our other competitors went deep, and I still think it was a good idea. But we've got a lot of projects. We have about 14 million square feet just out of the Seattle office, over about 34 projects. And a couple years ago, we had about 9 starts. This year, we're going to have probably 5, certainly 5 starts, meaning 5 new construction projects in Washington and in Oregon. Oregon, we went big as well. And then Seattle, we obviously went big as well. So Fred 310 has been our most talked about project. That's out in Frederickson, 310 acres. Very unique naming, Fred 310. Yeah. We're not complicated.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 buildings.
And then you had Big Freddie before that.
And
so
Big
very,
Freddie,
very unique
Big
name.
Freddie, Frederickson. Yeah.
We like that one too. Yeah.
We had Big Eddie, which is a marina down in Portland.
So creative.
Yeah, start running out of names, man. Yeah.
We were naming them after everyone's kids, and then we kind of ran out of kids' names.
Yeah.
When Tara left, but yeah. So Big Freddie's big. We have two buildings left to build there. We'll build roughly a 390,000 square footer this year, and we've got a 319 or so that we can build. We'll start breaking ground this year, but it'll be really a 2026 construction. So, and then we're active in the SeaTac market. We've got our Des Moines Creek phase 6, call it, if you count all of our Seattle Gateway stuff we did there, 470,000 square feet. That's a great little project, just finishing the slab. We've got walls tilted on a 570 in the Ridgefield, Vancouver market, 570,000 square feet. That'll Mount Vista, we call that. We really like the big box right now. We just successfully leased up about 300,000 square feet in 2 leases down in the Vancouver market. I should be signing a 60,000 square foot lease today in another project we have there. So it's been it's been challenging. We call it a knife fight.
Yeah.
You got to get the tenants, you got to get them to sign, you got to get the projects. Equity kind of went through a slow turn or a slow time. The banks went through a slow time. So it's been hard to get everything firing on all cylinders. So the fact that we can actually get a project to closing, meaning we find equity, we get permits, we find equity, we find a bank loan, and we can go vertical with it is an accomplishment in this market. But I feel a little naked on land positions right now, but I think the spigot's been turned back on. I think people see the future is looking brighter than it was, even though vacancy in Seattle is roughly 10%. Vacancy in Portland's 6.8%. Those don't sound like awesome numbers, but we're building, I think, in our sub-markets, a big box. I think the pedal's down. Time to go.
And as we know, not all vacancies treated equal. So 10%, but to your point, the big box, if you look at the deals that are out there, there's about 5 million feet of kind of signings and acquisitions that are taking place right now with 3.1 million under construction. So the vacancy is going to change on the big box stuff quickly.
Is dissecting the market, and that's a very important thing. If you can dissect the market, peel back the layers of the onion, what is really vacant, what's being built? Our vacancy, it sounds like a terrible number, but you're right, in the big box, it's actually pretty good. And what we're hearing is coming down the pike is going to make it even better. I think the other part of the story is the rent growth. The rent for the big box is remain the same. I've been waiting for that other shoe to drop. Luckily, it hasn't. But in Inland Empire, for instance, rental rates went the other way. They went down. Our Class A flight to quality in the Pacific Northwest has stayed strong, if not climbing. I don't know if it's advisable to underwrite that forever, meaning trended rents forever, but we've been very fortunate.
Certainly the Class A product across the board, for the most part, over the years here has held strong, and been the first to lease, held their rates. It's the secondary Class B market that's been hit the hardest for sure.
Yeah. It's the flight to quality, flight to Class A. There is a new Class A that came about in this economic e-commerce boom. Class A of 2015 is different than Class A in 2025. So that flight to quality is definitely there. I call it Class A first gen versus Class A second and third gen. Still Class A, beautiful project. Maybe it's 5 years old, maybe it's 10 years old, but it's actually seeing a decline in rental rate, which worrisome. If you're out there buying buildings, please don't run your Argus model on declining rents. But I think
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. Yeah. But we are seeing that the rents aren't being pushed in those projects; they're being pushed in the brand new Class A stuff.
Yeah. Can we talk about a couple of? You talked about land positions. There's a potential trade down in the Grand Mound area,
yes.
And then there was a potential trade up in the Fife area that you were playing on both. Can you talk about those?
It goes back to if a project was listed before, it's always going to be listed. Meaning there's a project, the Grand Mound one, for instance, doesn't feel like it was really listed in the market, yet we all showed up at the same time and played on it. And that was a kind of an interesting little play.
So it wasn't fully capital market, but rumor mill got it and guys started lobbing it off.
Yeah, and you're crazy if you're going to let your competition grab it from you, or at least grab it from you for a cheap price. So I think we all lobbed in an offer there. There was, I think, 6 or 7 offers, to be honest, is kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I didn't run the process. Granted, there wasn't really a process, but...
so it was kind of musical chairs. A bunch of brokers grabbed the developers and just ran in.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. And we've offered on that project a couple times, 3 or 4 times, and we, unfortunately, Panattoni didn't get it, which I think is an interesting sign that the market's turning on a little bit on the land side. Unfortunately, I wish land prices came down a little bit. We did see a reset, but construction prices has fallen, rental rates have stayed stable, and loans have come down. So it's kind of catching those land prices where they are. I think we've kind of we've plateaued or at least bottomed out on land prices. And so you're seeing, even at that, what I believe that's going to actually trade at is going to be, in my opinion, a little higher than probably the market really was. Or is.
Yeah, it's amazing that down there now with removing that site. The big ones you really have left is I-5 distribution and then the Winlock stuff, right?
Yeah.
Outside of that, doesn't seem to be a lot.
There doesn't seem to be a lot, but everyone always invents new land.
Sure.
We're out of land.
What was it Gary Vaynerchuk said like 25 years ago that the last piece of land?
I go down to the Portland market and it was, we're out of land. I'm like, no, you're not. There's lots of land down here compared to Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of perspective.
Agreed.
And how creative you are. But easy land sites, very hard to find.
Yeah.
They're environmental. They're on the side of a slope. They've got high groundwater. They've got entitlement issues / quasi-moratoriums, meaning high permit costs or high development costs. Not all land's created equal, but it's very, very hard to find good land these days. It's just greenfield flat. Yeah. I'd love to go back to Fife a couple years, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You just kept building and building and building.
Yeah, talk about that about the beginning of your career versus now on entitlement, because as you know, Bill and I just finished an 11-year entitlement process.
Right.
So I would say the average now on raw land is probably 4 or 5 years. Right?
We are closing on a piece of dirt coming up here. It's been a 4-year process. It is definitely, I don't know if it's called passive aggressive or what, but the municipalities aren't motivated to necessarily give you your entitlements very easily. I'm not saying they're all holding it hostage, but it's definitely not easy. There's not a lot of motivation to drive the entitlements in order to produce these buildings that produce jobs that take land from an underutilized use and turn it into something good for the tax rolls. Bottom line is development's good for the cities it's built in, and what's better, a vacant or a fallow old nursery or a brand new state-of-the-art industrial building that's providing jobs and paying high taxes? I think the latter. I mean, let's get the tax rolls up. Let's get jobs. Let's get people to stop commuting all the way to Seattle. Let's put jobs back in the communities where they live. And you've seen us do that at Tahali, for instance, down in the Bonnie Lake area. We're putting jobs back in the communities in which people live. It sounds like a catchphrase, which it probably is, but we honestly are. These communities are competing for the jobs. They're competing for their citizens to stop driving north on I-5 or south on I-5 and put those jobs where those people live. We don't have a transportation problem. We have a job distribution problem, is a famous quote that one person once said to me, and I think it's kind of true. Yeah, if we can distribute the jobs better, then we can, one, save on traffic, two, provide a better place for people to work.
I should know this, but did you guys ever land a deal on the large Tahali site? I know you did some smaller stuff.
Yeah, so the large, we have a site under contract out there. We can do a 330,000 square footer on one of the large Tahali sites. The pitch there is, would you rather drive 20 minutes to Frederickson? Keep in mind I own property in Frederickson. Or would you rather drive 15 minutes up the hill? If you're sitting in downtown Sumner, one of the best markets we have, where would you rather drive? And it makes you pause. And because Tahali is going to have that new road put in.
They fixed that, yeah.
The new
Is that done?
No, it's going to be done at the end of 2027.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
that'll make a big difference.
End of 2026, not 2027. So that's going to make a significant difference. They're waiting on building the bridge and putting the roundabout and the Ording Highway.
Got it.
But that's absolutely going to unlock that area. And it goes back to, would you rather a 300,000 square footer? It's still in the market, at least visually you can kind of see it from the market. You can see Sumner from Tahali in a way. Or would you rather drive all the way out to Frederickson, Lakewood, all markets that we all love and we own property in, but maybe there's a couple deals that should go up there.
You guys, you mentioned Bonnie Lake, and you guys have been definitely like the most pioneering developer in our careers. I mean, you built out Sumner before anybody was there.
Yep.
You mentioned Bonnie Lake,
Frederickson,
some of the market, Spokane, right? And you've had great success in these markets, but oftentimes you're the first one in, and then everybody follows.
Yes.
And there's a benefit to being the first one, and there's also a risk to doing that.
Yeah.
How do you continually stay ahead of your competition when you're looking at these markets and know when it's time to enter into a market?
You say that, and this morning I was thinking on the, for instance, like the Grand Mountain thing, doggone it. We are usually the pioneers.
Right.
We usually are. And I appreciate you saying that. It is a little crazy. It's certainly gutsy. Our pitch is, we live here. You guys live here. We live here. We understand traffic. We understand where people live. On the weekends, I'm doing property tours. We're not, but we're driving around where we live. And so it may look pioneering to the outsiders, but, Mount Si, for instance, which is our North Bend property, it's along I-90. The east side has very little industrial property. If anything, industrial property is being trying to be eliminated. Mm-hmm. So building new Class A on the east side anywhere is, we think is a really good idea.
Sure.
And we think that because we live here. We think that, so we are being pioneering, but it's not without some logic to it.
Yeah.
And again, people want to work where they live, and so that's one of those plays as well.
Is it getting any easier with equity? Because it feels like last year, a lot of developers had a problem raising capital. So is that loosening up, or where are we at?
I think we're on the verge of that. We were successful last year. We were really successful 2 years prior when equity shut down. Equities, they have hot cycles and cold cycles. There's a season to everything. Back in the day, we used to do everything with MetLife, and then we did everything with Crow and LaSalle. And the thing about us is we can go to multiple equity partners.
Sure.
And we've been very successful. I at one point, I had 11 equity partners in the Seattle office. That's 11 mouths to feed, 11 to keep happy, which is kind of fun. But we did a good job of it. But that's how we have gotten so busy, is we're able to take different equity partners and put them, nearly competing against each other. But it's kind of our ability to be flexible. I believe equity is turning on again. I say that carefully because we've been very fortunate doing that. Others have not. And it may be because of our reputation. It may be because of who we are, but maybe our underwriting. I think when equity slowed down, people failed to see where yields needed to go in order to get a deal done and get ugly fast. And so we went out and retraded our positions and redesigned things and got really aggressive and hustled. When people were still underwriting to a 6.25 yield on costs, we jumped all the way to 7.25, 7.5. And some equity partners chase yield, some chased IRR, multiples, just depends on what flavor it is. But lately, those chasing yield have been doing deals, at least with us.
And how do you feel about what Seattle's gone through in the last few years? And I say Seattle, but the Pacific Northwest. Throughout all of our careers, if you say West Coast, all the markets, Seattle's usually 1, 2, or 3 of the hottest markets. Yeah. Now it's kind of the bucket behind the boat, right? Mm-hmm. What do you see changing that? Do you feel like we're starting to change that? And what caused it? And how do you feel about the future?
I think it's an interesting question. Seattle's always been a very strong market. Mm-hmm. Barriers to entry, hard to get up here, hard entitlements. The land is, not all land's created equal. I love all the out-of-towners coming and doing development for 2 or 3 years and taking their ball and going home. It's comical how often it happens. So it is a challenging place to do business, and it's well known in our company that we've got a good foothold up here. We got the right consultants, we got the right team in place, and others don't. But Seattle has been lagging behind lately, and right now the tenant activity is really challenging. I think it has to do with West Coast and East Coast. Right now there's kind of a wave going from the East Coast to the West Coast, meaning East Coast is popular right now, and that wave's kind of trending back towards the West Coast. And unfortunately, it probably has a lot to do with our trades. Our market is so, Boeing is huge, Amazon's huge, but the regional markets, those markets that are growing just because of consumer spending being up and just that organic growth that our market does, in Salt Lake, Nevada, Boise, all those, Portland, for instance. Portland's hot right now. At least we think it's hot. Why is it hot? There's one port user in Portland, even though it's named Portland, but there's one user, there's one port client in
Never
Portland.
thought of that.
Maybe there's more than that, but I think it is, and it's cars. It's not even containers. But why has Portland got a 6.8% vacancy or so, and Seattle worse?
Yeah, why do they always get the auto stuff? They get a lot
think
of that
about
stuff.
it. Subaru's there, right?
Yeah.
They have some big companies that are there.
Yeah, Subaru, Mitsubishi's down there.
Yeah.
Our buddies do all the import, their auto warehousing, and it's one of their main.
It's funny you mention that. Like, one of my 3PL clients called me yesterday and was like, I have a 100 to 150 requirement down in Portland. So I connected them with our guys down there. But yeah.
Right now, it's where a lot of the deals we're doing are being done, meaning leases being signed, et cetera. I will say we all went home for Thanksgiving, and in all commercial real estate, and all my years of commercial real estate, it's like, oh boy, here we go. I'm not gonna do a darn thing until the middle of January. We came back from Thanksgiving break and the light switch turned on, even in Seattle.
Yeah.
Not saying we're signing leases or signing LOIs, but we're doing tours.
Yep.
We're talking, deals started popping up again. And I think another thing that just changed recently that I noticed is you're starting to see on the tenants in the market list 3PLs.
Yes.
And we need those 3PLs
For sure.
Yeah.
to start
100%.
gobbling up this square footage.
That's
get
the
rid of some of
backbone
the
of our
subleases
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Please take this stuff off the market
Yeah.
so I can stop competing against it.
That's right.
That's a really good point. I mean, they drive such a big part of our market, and it generates other deals, those 3PL companies, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a good thing when you see 4 or 5 3PL companies competing for a deal. You're like, all right, somebody's getting this and it's going to land, right? And one of these buildings is going to go.
And you got to start, deals come in bunches. You got to stir the pot a little bit.
Yes.
For instance, if something happens on the east side, maybe an aerospace user takes down 150,000 square feet, that's going to set a dominoes off on the east side. And I think we're going to see that here in the next quarter. At least that's what the rumor is. There's going to be some stuff on the east side that's going to start going. That'll be great. But that tenant then causes that tenant to move, that tenant, and then they'll start stirring the pot.
Yeah.
But right now, it's just the pot's just kind of sitting there.
For sure.
Yeah. So you've done a lot of projects over your career, a lot of projects.
A lot of square footage.
Do you have one or two that just like stand out to you as like maybe a favorite development?
Odd, we built the 300,000 square foot, 325,000 square foot FAA office building in
Oh, you guys
SeaTac.
nailed that.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Absolute luck. But
Yeah.
we did a good job on that. And we do suburban office, but not steel frame suburban office. We did a really good job there with the GSA. That was a fun project. I like all the Des Moines projects and the Seattle Gateway project. Those are all ground leases from the Port of Seattle. We've got a good partnership with them. We've been able to monetize them. I think Des Moines Creek Phase 1 is on its 4th trade now.
Wow.
Yeah.
You think about that being a stamp of approval for ground leases. That
Good
thing's
point.
traded 4 times.
Yeah. had good
Crazy.
numbers each time too.
Yeah. Fred.
It's funny how that changed because I remember the first ground lease sale came out. People were like, "No."
Yeah. Basis points. It's an absolute worth less.
Yeah.
And that thing, I would challenge a couple times it probably traded at market.
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
Yeah, there's a very minuscule discount, if any.
That's right.
Yeah, especially there.
Yeah, the Fred 310 is a great project. Yeah, buying that unentitled, showing up to Fred 310 and Pacific Gateway, 2 of the Boeing deals we did were 2 life bucket list projects, iconic properties. We're still working through Fred 310, but that was a good project.
Yeah, it was good. The Gateway, Pac Gateway was good.
Yeah,
we did a
those are
deal
great.
with you guys there.
Yeah.
One of our tenants.
Final question for you. You had obviously a big retirement a few months ago, probably one of the arguably top 2, 3 most iconic guys in our industry.
Legend.
How does that change
Bart Brynestad,
Bart Brynestad. How does that change your organization and your day-to-day?
Yeah, Panattoni was built 2003 is when the office opened with Bart. He left from Opus and went over. He's been an icon. He's been a mentor to nearly every industrial broker from young to old in the industry. His knowledge is vast. So you want to say that, no, I've learned everything from him and I'm going to be exactly him moving forward. But there's a void in the office. He's definitely, his leadership, his knowledge, his ability to just cut through all the BS and just, get to the three important facts, that is a challenge. Sadly, most of the people, 90% of the market has to go through all the other facts in order to get to the final three, but he could just get to the final three, like, it's rent, it's, it's construction pricing, and just deliver the thing. Get the thing leased. Drove him nuts when we were trying to, push market rents. And he was right. We pushed market rents, and cap rates went from a 2.95 cap all the way up to a 4.1 cap.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, we absolutely lost millions by that. And so his mantra, it sticks with us. And every time someone wants to delay or outthink a deal, let's think about that. There's nothing to think about. Get the thing leased and move on.
Yes.
We're merchant developers. We've got cash flow and fiduciary duty to our clients. Get the thing leased. It's good for everyone.
Yeah.
So he's definitely missed in the office, and he's not a sounding board there anymore.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, one of his favorite approaches that I've probably quoted 1,000 times with clients is when we got an empty building and maybe we've got a odd configuration or something. I always say, hey, there's two philosophies. The Bart Brynestad, bird in the hand, right? You do that deal, and sometimes it's demised a little weird, but just do the deal and figure out the rest. And that philosophy proved to be one of the more strategic right passageways. Just get the deal done, figure out the balance of the building, rather than waiting for that perfect scenario.
So many people try to outthink the thing, outthink everything, and predict the market, and think that there's some grand scheme in the market. No, just get the deal done, and then solve the next problem, then solve the next problem.
Right.
I have a good Bart story. I was like 2 years into the industry, and there was a listing that had been sitting vacant for a long time that I heard Panattoni was going to make a change on. So I crafted this like really well thought out email, multiple paragraph, boom. Send it to him, right? About 5 minutes later, he reads it. Maybe he didn't read the whole thing or not. He responded, "You're hired. Get to work." And I didn't know if he was serious or not. And so I called Tara, who was
Tara
like that.
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, he's serious. You're hired."
You're hired.
And just like that, he gave me the list. So,
He did not waste time making decisions. And we can all take that. That is a good mentor lesson from him. Make a decision and move on.
But no, he's great, and they wish him well in retirement. He's earned it. And,
he's earned it.
And you'll eventually get to your day to do that too. But it's a ways out there, buddy.
I've got a ways to go. 10, 15 more years.
Well, thank you. For taking the time.
Absolutely.
We're excited. We have a big project in Spokane that we're going to be working on with you guys.
Thank you very much.
We're launching Monday.
Yeah.
And really excited about that project.
Yeah, we're excited with you guys and Colliers and our partnership that we have with you guys. So appreciate all you guys are doing. Capital markets, and you guys are crushing it, bringing deals left and right. So as well as leasing, I don't know how you do it all, as well as podcasts.
Yeah, well.
As well as run every day and do Ironmans. Making me
Jiu-jitsu, that's my new thing.
Oh, got it. Well, I really appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Thanks for a great job as always.
Appreciate it.